Chaos and fear gripped Pakistan's Balochistan province as armed militants hijacked the Jaffar Express inside a tunnel. The BLA, or the Balochistan Liberation Army, has claimed responsibility for the attack. Pakistan security forces launched a rescue operation engaging in an intense gun battle. At least 27 militants were killed, while 155 passengers, including women and children, have been safely evacuated. Now, the rescued passengers were transported to Machh by relief train. Police have not specified exactly how many passengers were taken hostage in the remote mountainous area, but the insurgents said they were in fact holding 214 hostages and have threatened to start executing them. Meanwhile, reports suggest that some hostages have been taken into the mountains with security forces in pursuit. Pakistan Railways has meanwhile set up emergency desks as frantic families still seek updates. Now, the operation is ongoing, with authorities vowing to ensure the safe return of all hostages. Train services, meanwhile, between Quetta and Peshawar did only recently resume, in fact, because of previous security concerns. Meanwhile, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has strongly condemned the attack on Pakistan's Jaffar Express train by BLA militants and has called, in fact, for the immediate release of all hostages. Listen in, Bashir Yusuf, a released train passenger, on the hostage situation.
लोग चीख रहे थे, गाने मार रहे थे, बस कुछ लेट गए, हम भी लेट गए पूरी ट्रेन में, सब लोग लेट गए कि अपनी जान बचाएं। बदबाइश से कुछ फायरिंग हुई, ब्लास्ट हुए, आप लोग नीचे उतरे, लोग नहीं उतर रहे थे, मैं अपने बच्चों को लेकर उतर गया।
The search for a missing 20-year-old college student Sudiksha Konanki is intensifying in the Dominican Republic. NDTV World has accessed the last known footage, in fact, of the missing student. In the video, Sudiksha can be seen walking to the beach on the 6th of March. That's right, 6 days before the day she disappeared. Local officials have now requested Interpol to issue a yellow notice, a global alert for missing persons. Ukraine would accept a U.S. proposal for an immediate 30-day ceasefire if Russia agrees, Kiev and Washington have reaffirmed. After 9 hours of negotiations, senior U.S. officials ended the pause on military assistance and intelligence sharing, which Kiev had warned was costing Ukrainian lives. The ball is in Russia's court, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said, as the U.S. is expected to present the plan to the Kremlin shortly. Meanwhile, Moscow's position remains unclear, although one Russian lawmaker did say the plan was unacceptable, while a former advisor to Russia's President Vladimir Putin said it was a proposal to rearm, in fact, the Ukrainian army. Listen to what Trump had to say about this plan.
Very importantly, and I said it, Ukraine, ceasefire, Ukraine, ceasefire, just agreed to a little while ago. Now we have to go to Russia and hopefully President Putin will agree to that also, and we can get this show on the road. We can get this horrible war where 2,000-3,000 soldiers a week, every week, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 sometimes. I get the reports, and they're not American soldiers. They're Ukrainian and they're Russian. But people are being killed outside of that. People are being killed in the cities as things explode throughout the cities. And we want to get that war over with. So I think it's a very big, I think it's a big difference between the last visit you saw at the Oval Office and this. So that's a total ceasefire.
Russian missile strike on Dnipropetrovsk killed a 47-year-old woman and injured at least 2 others. This is according to local officials. Now, Dnipropetrovsk's regional governor has said that the attack also triggered a fire at an infrastructure facility in the area. Local officials, meanwhile, have confirmed the casualties, adding that emergency responders were working to contain the damage. Now, the strike is part of ongoing Russian assaults on Ukrainian cities amid the prolonged conflict, and details of the attack come right after Ukraine, in fact, agreed for a 30-day ceasefire in Saudi after meeting with Marco Rubio. On the other side of the border, Russia's foreign intelligence chief Sergei Naryshkin held a phone call Tuesday with the director of U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA. The duo discussed issues of cooperation between their respective intelligence agencies and crisis management. The U.S. Department of Education will lay off nearly half its workforce as President Donald Trump moves towards shutting down the agency entirely. Education Secretary Linda McMahon confirmed the cuts, saying they align with Trump's mandate. Now, the department, which oversees $1.6 trillion in college loans and school funding, will shrink from 4,133 employees to 2,183, almost half its size. Offices were shut down Tuesday evening ahead of the announcement. Agencies across the government are preparing, in fact, for a second round of mass layoffs, with buyout payments of up to $25,000 offered to departing employees. Donald Trump has halted a plan to double U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and metal imports to 50%, just hours after the first threatening them. Now, tariffs of 25% are still going ahead and will take effect from Wednesday onwards. Now, the move by the president comes after the Canadian province of Ontario, in fact, suspended new charges of 25% on electricity that it sends to some northern states across the border to the U.S. Now, this also came hours after Trump threatened to sharply increase his tariffs on the country. On the other hand, Trump has dismissed fears of a recession and also brushed aside the stock market sell-off. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt referred to the tariffs imposed by India on American alcohol and agricultural products and said that Trump believes in reciprocity. Listen into what the U.S. President and the White House had to say.
Do you think there will be a recession?
I don't see it at all. I think this country is going to boom. But as I said, I can do it the easy way or the hard way. The hard way to do it is exactly what I'm doing, but the results are going to be 20 times greater.
Mr. President, you asked...
And remember, Trump is always right.
And what do you say to Americans?
If you look at what I've said over the last 10 years, Trump has been right.
India, 150% tariff on American alcohol. You think that's helping Kentucky bourbon be exported into India? I don't think so. 100% tariff on agricultural products from India.
The European Union will impose counter tariffs on $28.3 billion worth of U.S. goods starting the 1st of April, retaliating against U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced the move, saying it in fact matches the economic impact of U.S. measures. The EU will introduce tariffs in 2 phases, they've said, with full implementation by the 13th of April. Now, von der Leyen emphasized, in fact, that the EU remains open to negotiations and has also tasked Trade Commissioner Marcos Sefcovic with resuming talks. Meanwhile, the Trump administration's 25% tariff hike on steel and aluminum imports has already taken effect. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has said that U.S. tariffs on Australian steel and aluminium were unjustified. However, his government would not retaliate with its own tariffs. A former Australian government secured an exemption with the previous Trump administration back in 2018 based on arguments including that Australian steelmaker BlueScope employs thousands of workers in the U.S. Albanese has said that he would continue to pursue an Australian exemption. The 2018 exemption, meanwhile, took several months to secure.
The United States' decision to impose tariffs on Australian steel and aluminium as part of a global decision are concerning. It has been foreshadowed that no country, regardless of its relationship with the United States, has been granted an exemption. Such a decision by the Trump administration is entirely unjustified. This is against the spirit of our two nations' enduring friendship and fundamentally at odds with the benefits that our economic partnership has delivered over more than 70 years. Australia has no tariffs on goods from the United States, and of course we have a free trade agreement with the United States.
US Vice President J.D. Vance is set to reportedly visit India later this month. He'll be accompanied by Second Lady Usha Vance. Now, interestingly, this will be Vance's second international trip as Vice President following his recent visits to France and Germany in Europe. Meanwhile, Usha Vance, whose parents emigrated from India to the US, in fact, will visit her ancestral country for the first time as Second Lady. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval will chair a high-profile intelligence conclave on the 16th of March, focusing on enhancing intelligence sharing to combat terrorism and transitional crimes. The meeting will bring together top intelligence officials from 20 nations, including US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, Canadian Security Intelligence Service Chief Daniel Rogers, and Britain's MI6 head Richard Moore. The conclave aims to strengthen global security cooperation amid rising geopolitical tensions and evolving threats.